If George Soros is as dirty a player as a lot of people would like to believe, he's going to fail. And he's going to fail big time. And I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why. Now, I'm making this video because I kind of slightly touched in on the topic previous one. And just after I did, I was like, yeah, my regular audience would actually want this covered, so I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into it. So bear with me. All right, so the world is very much a different place from back when he broke the Bank of England, if you. And not just is there a lot more information going all over the place and being generated and passed on a lot faster than before. But yeah, even in spite of having all the best algorithms, you could have all over the place. You just you won't be able to keep track of it in a way that he would have back then. Back then, so I'm basing this off of the premise that the cycle, as I would see it, that could be, if that is the cycle, it's a mastermind cycle, would have been, brilliant for the longest time, but it's not going to work a lot for a lot longer. So anyway, so let's say he's playing this dual game with the Open Society Foundation on one end and then his fund on the other. So his Open Society Foundation with its ideology and vision and aim and all, benevolent and you know what's the damn humanitarian, all this, all these wonders that they acclaim to be. Yeah, so philanthropical, that's a word that I was looking for. So yeah, so let's give it that. And it's funding all these different projects all over the place, and projects that kind of fall under that ideological vision can come and apply for funds, or someone can just go in there and craft them and and then file the application to the funds they were already going to get. So let's just assume that if he's doing all of this, if that's just, that foundation is really actively stirring up discontent and civil unrest somewhere, and then crafting these activist these street teams and activist projects, then funding them and driving that and stirring things up, and then philanthropist George Soros or someone out of his team walks into big politicians and says, you know, uh, we've seen this, we know this stuff, and we have a solution. We're brilliant business minds. We know how to engineer all this kind of stuff. We have solutions for you, and then they get to, because they're big and almighty, philanthropical, wonderful characters. They get to advise on all these policy things, so they know what they've stirred up, and then they know what the policy is going to be, and they know how that's going to play out on the market. So where the losses are going to be felt and where the gains are going to be felt, based on what the policy is going to do once enacted. And this is, if this is a practice, and it's very much what it looks like. So I'm just saying, if what it looks like is what's actually going on, then this is the ultimate mastery of insider trading, and there would be no other way to label that than insider trading, because you're on all sides of these things, right? But of course, a lot of people would like us to believe that no, that's not going on. So yeah. So anyway, at any rate, so let's say this is the game that they've been playing recently for God knows how long, and then let me ask you this: do you think George Soros would have predicted the Brexit vote outcome? Do you think he would have predicted the election of Trump? Do you think he would have predicted the rise going on the dark web, on the internet, on YouTube, on the chans and the Reddit and all these different message boards, etc., and the actual weight and impact that all of that had going on? You think he predicted all that? I don't. And I think if he had predicted it, Hillary would have probably won. And I also don't think that he predicted WikiLeaks, the emergence of WikiLeaks, and then what that has done, and the fact that it doesn't seem to be just kowtowing the Open Society Foundation's agenda. Yeah, I quite frankly, I don't think he anticipated a lot of these things. So then, as brilliant as this is, and as beautiful as this worked back before there was the free flow of information that is the internet, yeah, it's really good for its time, but I just don't think it can be relied on anymore. And now, of course, everybody knows that there are all these YouTubers and there is Reddit and the chants and everything, and of course when the elections were over, oh, of course, then everybody just because then they had to figure out. So, well, I'm talking about the U.S. presidential election. So they had to figure out what on earth happened, right? Why did the polls have it wrong, and all these, and yeah, they're you're so biased in favor of something, and you want to try and discourage the others, and all that stuff, and you just lose track of what's really going on, in spite of having every bit of technology to figure it out. So yeah, so there is all of that, and of course now they know. And then what happens? Yeah, they try and censor social media, and again, the public is ahead of them, way ahead of the game, because you get alternative social media platforms en masse. There are so many. I get invited all the time to sign up for all these new social media platforms. There are so many that I would have 200 tabs on my browser if I was gonna be on all of them. So how are you gonna keep track of that? All of what's going on there, to make sure that you can predict a society, especially if you're trying to plant something into a society, you're hoping it mobilizes a certain action. You're gonna try and predict how that moves, so you can accurately give the right prescriptions and then predict where the losses and gains are gonna fall. You're gonna need a lot of intelligence, and certainly a lot more than a few Russian bots. You're gonna need a lot more than that. So yeah, so he's gonna have to hire a lot of people. He's gonna have to invest in a whole bunch of technology. Just look at the amount of money that he put into the Open Society Foundation after after the elections, after Trump won, and we've that's all we've been seeing in the United States since. We've been seeing those millions of dollars in action, and it's so funny. Nothing seems to bite. Nothing seems to stick. It's just that money's being burned up and it's having no effect. Well, we don't know yet, but it doesn't seem to be having much effect. We'll see by the midterms if it's not a DNC landslide by the midterms. Then yeah, a lot of people have burned a lot of Soros money, and that's how you do it, really. And another thing you can do, you can if you want to help him waste his money faster, you can craft all these beautiful little local ambitions that fall in line with the Open Society Foundation's agenda, and honestly, just do all these beautiful things for a better society, more inclusive society, you know, intellectually inclusive. Why not? Don't have to write it, but inclusive. And yeah, you can apply for a grant from the foundation and help him do the wonderful work. Just peaceful, beautiful social organization, and yeah, that too, right? So, and maybe you can actually do it peacefully, so that you'll be the one little organization that he's funding that he can predict, because you're actually actually doing the constructive thing. Just peaceful community work, empowering people, actually empowering individuals, not just rallying them up as rampant raged street troops, right? But yeah, so you can do that. Then there's another thing. Now, George Soros is not just a notorious and spectacular and grandiose and successful investor. He's also, because of precisely that, an influencer. So, if you are an up and coming investor or an amateur, you're interested in this stuff, then yeah, there are a whole bunch of services online where you can actually buy access to portfolios of those influencers, those big timers. You can get to see how they trade and what they're doing and what their portfolio looks like, how it's moving each time, and to learn from them. And it's this is a really great tool if you are one of these influencers. You move into something big time, and then all of them are going to chase you, and they're going to throw up, toss up the value of that stock for a bit, and then you can run away and take away gains that your poor followers actually chased you into. You can pretty much, if you have a big enough following, you can actually even play that. So yeah, it seems like a cute idea that you can just be following a mentor like that, if you will. And but I can also see how that can be a source for a game for a clever investor who has a sense of the engineering and a sense of the timing. So yeah, I'm not sure if I would myself actually use a service like that to learn. I would at least be somewhat cautious uh, whether I could trust these mentors to not be aware of this potential little key there, and then of course not using it. But the fact that you can actually go in and find portfolios for various big investors and see what stocks and bonds they're holding, what their portfolio looks like, how they move, and what they move into and out of, and analyze this stuff. Especially, if you would let the 4chan crowd loose on his portfolio for a little bit, these guys, those minds, they would know exactly every tiny detail of what he does, how he moves, how he diversifies, what he goes into and out of, and they'd calculate the patterns of his entire track record in no time. So I don't know. Maybe you can find his portfolio somewhere and track it. Maybe not. Might I say. So there's that. But there are all these things. But at any rate, yeah. Whenever he's gonna try and move into something, there's a growing number of people that, at least, be it right or not, there are people suspicious of him. Let's just say that. People who are suspicious of his intent, agenda, of it. Now, obviously, the guy wrote the book. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the title. I think it's called The Alchemy of Finance or something like that. He wrote some big, brilliant book. A bestseller. Now, okay, yeah, I gotta say I haven't read that one. It would be interesting to read that and say, okay, so what is he teaching us? How is he conditioning us versus what this looks like, and then ask, of course, if we read that, okay, so if he's teaching that to a generation of investors, then what would be the exact opposite? Because if he is as dirty a player as many suspect, then yeah, he would be very likely to condition a whole bunch of people to do this, and then know exactly how to short, if you will, all of what he knows that they're gonna do because they're learning from the master. And yeah, so there are these things, and this guy is not a stranger to doing shorting deals. Hence the British pound story. Um, what else was I gonna include? I didn't in my mind. Just I hate it when I get on these rants and I have more points and details to toss in, and then it just slip me. And I know they're important, so I'm just like, I want to get back on point, but yeah. At any rate, so there are all these different ways and tactics and strategies, but it's just, there's so many people out there. So he's up against people who have access to information, and and that is what makes him vulnerable, because he would have to employ people and technology that counter the millions of people who are in their free time on the internet, with an active will to make sure that whatever he may or may not be doing is certainly not moving in a way that they don't like, moral. And yeah, now is here I remember the thing that I was going to say. So he George Soros himself once said that capitalism needs to be heavily regulated to protect people from people like him. He said that after he had demonstrated how he could really play the market bad, and he's right on that. But at the same time, George Soros is also the very reason for why any and all regulation will never suffice. So if he's saying you have to regulate the economy to protect from people like me, and people like him are the ones actually, contributing to the regulations. They get to have their say, and this the same thing with this whole pay for play thing. Like people suspect the Clinton Foundation of. It's the same thing. For it's illegal for most people, even people who work in accounting somewhere. It's illegal for them to make use of information, even for their family members to be trading in something that is anywhere within within what they do, within what they're touching in their everyday lives. There are huge rules on insider trading for all of us, but yeah, I guess as long as you can toss that wonderful philanthropy stamp on there somewhere, then of course, insider trading is that's not a problem anymore. But yeah, at any rate, that's to sum it all up. This lengthy rant really just sum it up to tiny point that I could have made in 3 minutes, but I figured I'd go a little bit into detail. Is George Soros, if he's doing all of what he's doing, is going to fail because there are millions of people now with the same amount of information that he can get, accessible to them in real time as it gets generated, and they're always going to be able to be one step ahead because he will never have the manpower and technology to be ahead of the game in terms of new platforms being created, new media outlets, new encryption, new ways to game algorithms. It's just the amount of minds that he would have to have on payroll to actively resist against the amount of minds that are using their free time just doing their thing and going against an agenda that he's trying to push and or play. Yeah, it's I can't see the amount of game theory, and a lot of this, pretty much almost all of this comes down to game theory in some way, shape, or form. The infinity of computations there need to be game theory computations you need to be making here all the time to try and predict this ocean that the internet has become. It's madness, and that's what makes the internet so beautiful. It takes a lot of power from pretty much all of us because it also gives a lot of power. So gives us power that, well, yeah, can make us very secure and also very open because we can't be tracked, all of us, all the time. But it also means that we can track the higher ups. Yeah, it gives power and takes power, but it certainly makes some things very tricky and difficult. And makes for a whole different venue. So the venue is completely changed just a few decades. This world. That's pretty impressive. So, you know, going back to this whole socialists and communists and the entire left, they keep talking about power to the people. If there was ever in the last century anything that gave power to the people, it's the internet. With those words, Viking out.